If you're looking for a new way to support Side Mission, check out Dubby.gg, an energy supplement company trying to make a difference. Make sure to use code SIDEMISSION for 15% off your order. Thank you, Dubby, for sponsoring this episode, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome into the newest episode of Side Mission. I, like always, am your host, Rusty Ellis, joined by the boys, Matt and Kyle. And today we're starting a new series. We reviewed every episode of The Last of Us on HBO earlier this year. Had so much fun with it, we decided that if there was a movie or, another TV show that came out based off a game, we'd review it as well. We did the same with the Super Mario Bros. Movie. We'll do the same moving forward with any other movies that come out that are game-related. Today, we're talking about episode 1 of Twisted Metal on Peacock. Finally, my Peacock gets a little bit of use because I'm not going to lie. Outside of WWE, I don't really watch anything on it. So my Peacock gets a little bit of use finally, considering I pay for that a month. But let's go ahead. Let's jump right in, boys. Episode 1. So I believe, Kyle, you've already finished the entire show, right?
I have, yeah, twice.
Good God, you finished it that fast. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I'll let prepare for that. Matt, have you only watched the first episode or have you gone any further?
I'm up to episode 7.
Oh my God. Here I was thinking that I wasn't gonna be the one furthest behind. Jesus Christ. I clearly have work to do. Well, we're all multiple episodes in, so just focusing purely on episode 1. I will say, and Kyle's gonna take his victory lap at some point around me on this. I'm glad that we were recording this a few days after me watching episode 1 versus immediately when I did, because I'm not going to lie. After my first initial viewing of it, I didn't love it. I didn't really love it. I was kind of just thinking, this probably isn't for me. I'm not really big into the series. I don't know if this is for me at all. I will say, after watching it again and thinking about it a little more, I like the first episode a little bit more. It's a good first step. It's a good setup, I think. I think the both of you agree. The first episode, there's not really a ton that goes on. It's kind of just a lot of setup. You meet Anthony Mackie's character. You pretty much set up the prime conflict for the entirety of the season. At least I'm assuming. I don't know at this point. Apparently, y'all are both 7, 8 episodes in, and I'm fucking 2.5 in. So maybe I'm wrong when I say that. But let's start with just overall thoughts. Kyle, you were really looking forward to this. The first episode. Do you feel like this got the show off to a good start?
Yeah, I'm with you. When I first watched this episode, it didn't sell me on it, and it did take a I will say, having watched the whole season, the first episode is absolutely the weakest. It gets so, every episode builds and gets better and better, and but I also agree that it did a good job setting a lot of stuff up. It introduced us to, obviously Raven, the leader of New San Francisco, and the whole ordeal for this season is she wants John Doe, Anthony Mackie's character, to go and get a package for her. He has to come back within 10 days, cannot be a minute late. If he does so successfully, then he gets to become a citizen of New San Francisco. And I think it's a really interesting concept because in a lot of apocalypse movies or shows or games, we mainly see people struggling to survive. But in this show, it shows us that there are cities that are actually thriving like normal civilizations. At least some of them are. Some of them are normal. But it's
very, very, very loosely used.
Especially in this universe. But I played quite a few of the Twisted Metal games when I was younger. They never really had that crazy of a story. I mean, I was never the biggest fan of the series, but having played it, I was excited that they were doing a show on it because I really only came here for two things: cars and guns, and I got both. Yeah. But yeah,
I will say I think the action's really good. I think the action was really good. It takes a few scenes to kind of get going because Matt said it really, really well when we were talking about the chat. It feels very Michael Bay-ish feels very Michael Bay-ish. Is that
Yeah.
there's just a lot of explosions, a lot of stuff going on in the background, a lot of stuff happening all at once. Um, I have to ask, and Matt, I'll go to you for this, and Kyle, I want your input on this as well. How do we feel about Anthony Mackie as the lead here? I personally I think his sense of humor is really good. It fits the role really, really well. I will say the one joke that really made me laugh was there's a Foot Locker here.
Yeah.
That to me actually made me laugh because I've uttered those same words in a mall before as well. And then him snagging the J's on the way out was hysterical as well. There was just part of me, and if I'm alone here, I'm alone here, and that's perfectly fine. There's part of me that almost wishes they had gotten somebody that was kind of lesser known, because the whole time I was watching, I kind of just had this thought in the back of my head of, okay, that's Falcon, like that's Sam, like that's Sam Wilson, like that's
Yeah.
not. I don't want to say it took me out of the entire show because I don't think it did, but it definitely was kind of abrupt at first, like seeing Anthony Mackie in a role that was not Falcon. Matt, what did you think of Anthony Mackie? Again, I like his sense of humor.
Yeah, I thought Anthony Mackie was a fantastic addition. The thing was with him, I've only ever seen him in the MCU, especially coming off him being the main character, title character in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
So to see him in a completely different world and actually a completely different series was a little interesting for me. Because a lot of the people in the MCU that I have seen them in something previously before. So this is the first time I've seen someone I was introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe coming into something completely different. Now, to be honest with you, I think it's just the fact that the first episode wasn't really giving me that much. That they introduced the character. They introduced kind of a little bit of his story, his motives as to why he's doing what he's doing, being a milkman, which I think is a really cool concept in this whole entire world. But I just think that the script was a little weak for me in the first episode because it's he feels right at home here because in the script they give him a lot of these one-liner and these quips, and that's exactly what I expected from in the MCU. That's what a lot of people associate with the script and why it is sometimes so heavily criticized. But for what he was given, I thought he did a really good job, especially considering I've seen up to 7 episodes. I kind of know a little bit more about it, and he definitely gets a lot better as you know more about his character, and his comedic timing is perfect. Like the jokes, they do work for me, especially the one that we were talking about with the Skechers in the mall when that shootout happened.
Jays, yeah.
Absolutely hilarious.
You're gonna get blasted by people that listen when they hear you call them
And,
Skechers. Oh my god!
I call them Skechers. Oh man, I'm getting blasted. That's fine.
You're getting roasted. Kyle, you had something to add with Anthony Mackie, I think.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
What? Oh no, I was just gonna say one other thing was that I think his acting range is really good. He did a great job with comedy. They gave him a couple of moments where it was a little bit more serious, talking about his past. He has this picture of him as a child and his parents behind him, but it's burned, so you don't see his parents' faces. And you can just tell by looking at his face, like he's really good at doing that kind of acting where you can just, tell what they're feeling by looking at their expressions.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, the first episode was a lot of, fast humor. It's kind of just like you said. It's very MCU quick, quips, and except this is a little bit more raunchy, and it gets raunchier. Yes. This is not a kids show by any means. I mean, the games were never for kids games to begin with, but this is raunchy. But as the show goes on, Anthony Mackie does get a lot better, and I think that this show gave me a lot more appreciation for him as an actor because I've seen more range come out of him than just, a couple of serious moments and a bunch of funny moments. I've seen a lot of different, emotions from him. And, I think that by the end of season 1, everybody will be sold on him as the main character. I think him and his co-star Quiet. She is badass, dude. And man, That first episode for her though was fucked because they also introduce you to the main villain of season 1, Agent Stone, and
Yes,
he's
and
one
he's
mean motherfucker.
badass.
Yeah.
Thomas Hayden Church was cast perfectly for that role. I will say, like, I think that of all the things that you could be critical of in this, the cast is not one of them. I think the cast is really, really solid, and we'll talk more about a certain clown in the next episode review we do. But I think Thomas Hayden Church was absolutely perfect. Loved Stephanie Beatriz is quiet. Loved her.
Yes.
Loved her in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Think her sense of humor was perfect in that show, and I love her so far in this show as well. So again, I think that the casting was really well done. And Kyle, you're right about Agent Stone. That's one mean motherfucker, and I don't know that they could have picked someone better than Thomas Hayden Church to play him.
Yeah, definitely. He's one scary, mean dude.
I actually was happy that they introduced him, considering that he is based off of a character from Twisted Metal Black, and that's one thing that when you're making a show based off a video game, I look for those characters, and the fact that they brought him in was really cool.
Well, I like because that kind of tells me that this isn't just a beat for beat rip of one game,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of appreciate that. I appreciate that this is them trying to tell a story or show a plot line that is not something that people that have played the games have already seen. That's a way that you can get newcomers interested into a show. Now, I don't know that this show is going to grab as many newcomers as something like, say, The Last of Us did, because there are people that I know that have never played a video game that watched The Last of Us and were like, holy shit, this is crazy, this is awesome, like, this is a great story. But I think for fans of the series, I think this is really, really good. Now, I think that there's a chance that new fans get pulled in, and I'm hopeful that by the time we get to the end of this season, I'm hopeful that I'm one of them. I just don't think that the first episode, if you were relying on the first episode to really pull you in, especially as much as we talked about the ending of this episode,
Yes.
and how big of a tease it is.
Oh yeah.
It's a really good thing that they put all the episodes out immediately. I think that's a really good decision to put all of them out immediately, because you don't have that build up between episodes like you do with episode 1. I think episode 1 would have fared a lot worse had it had a week between it and episode 2. I think it would have fared a lot worse. I think the fact that you can go straight into episode 2 immediately, it works a lot more for that. Now, we talked about the action, and we haven't really gone that far in depth with it, but I'm not going to lie. One thing that made me laugh, and it's kind of stupid, the little miniguns. Listen, if there's a kid listening, parents, I'm sorry. There's no nice way. There's no clean way to go into this. They blew off the dude's testicles. That was pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie. Again, I'm sorry, parents. You got to know what you're getting into if you let kids listen to these episodes. You got to know what you're letting them get into.
That's where that raunchy humor comes in.
The raunchy humor, it lands, I have to say, and I think that's again Anthony Mackie. It works with him, and again, it kind of throws you for a minute if you're so used to just seeing him in the MCU, like Matt said. I feel like it could throw you. I will also say, y'all talk about his range. Y'all both absolutely should watch We Are Marshall. I know it's a sports movie, but he is in. It's one. I don't know if that's one of his first roles. I don't believe it's one of his. It's an earlier role of his. He has got some great acting moments in that movie. He is phenomenal. Anthony Mackie is. But there are just the raunchy humor really is what carries this first episode, because that's ultimately what you'll keep watching for, is just, okay, how do they top this? How do they top that? And I will say, as someone that's gotten through episode 2 and is into episode 3, I keep saying season, Jesus Christ, not yet. As someone, like, it feels like they do a good job of building onto that stuff. They do a good job of topping the best from each of the previous episodes. So I think this is a good building block episode, and there's definitely room for them to grow for sure. Matt, you said you had something to add.
Yeah, so I think one thing that will help out to understand the humor of this is to understand, like, basically compare it to the kind of humor, raunchy, gory humor that we get in flicks like Zombieland or the Evil Dead series. That's really one thing that connected with me, and I think why I just decided to stick with it. And the more I watch, the closer it started resembling that type of humor, and I love those.
No, I think you're spot on with that. I think Zombieland is a very, very good comparison. I think this is a little bit more gory and a little bit more graphic. But I think that I think that it works, and I think that's the important part. Is that so often in all kinds of medium, violence can often be like just gratuitous and not really like given much meaning. Like I think of like Black Ops 3's campaign, for example. Violence in that campaign is almost just used for straight up shock value. Here, I feel like it's used and it's given like humorous uses, and I like that.
Yes.
Hostel's another great example where it's just gory for the sake of being gory. There's no real meaning. Here, it's used for comedic effect. It's used for humor. And again, Kyle, as you mentioned, anyone that plays the games know these aren't like clean rated E games.
Yeah.
They're pretty violent. They're pretty graphic, and I think the show reflects that so far. So in that aspect, I think the show nailed it. Now, the last thing I want to mention, and I think that both of you will agree, I think the decision to go to 30-minute episodes was very smart. I think that was
100%.
very, very smart.
Yeah, agreed.
I think had these episodes been an hour, and I'll let each of you kind of give some input here, I feel like maybe each episode would have dragged on a little bit too long. And I feel like at some point you maybe start to lose a little bit of interest. But 30 minutes, it's a very easy watch. You can binge the entire show. If you're off work one day, you can binge the entire show in a day. And it's really, really, it's a much easier watch because of that. Do y'all feel that same? Kyle, I'll go to you first for that.
I do. Honestly, it's why I've watched the whole season twice, is because you can just watch it so fast. And it also, when I finished it, I felt so satisfied with, the ending of season 1 that I was like, man, I wish I had more to watch. And so rewatching it, it wasn't like, oh man, I gotta sit through 10 hours of, more. It was a fun rewatch. Now, I don't know how much I'm gonna rewatch it again until the new season comes out, but I think that 30-minute episodes was absolutely perfect for this, because there's only so much I think you can fit into with raunchy humor, and where, these games don't have an insanely detailed storyline, they're having to really make this up as it, because the games were just about, it was basically Mortal Kombat for cars. There's a tournament,
Yeah.
everybody enters, and whoever, whoever
They get their
wins
wish.
gets their one wish, and that was pretty much it. So the whole
Is that
story,
really the premise? I never knew that.
That's the
yeah.
premise of it. Mhm.
There's a certain
Wow.
character who comes in later that we can't talk about yet, but we will. But they really set up for a lot of good stuff in season 1 that plays out for the rest of the season. Or I mean, in episode 1, that plays out for the rest of the season, and that's a big thing with me, is continuity. Don't put something in a show and focus on it for it to never go anywhere, because that will bother
You're not
me.
going to do anything with it. I
Yes, and everything that they put in episode 1, even in episode 2, with it comes to light. I love it.
Yeah, 30-minute episodes was the way to go this with this show, compared to The Last of Us, which kind of teeter-tottered between 45 minutes to an hour episodes. It's just, with me, Twisted Metal needed to have that kind of length, because one thing that they absolutely did is they did not waste any time. I don't feel like anything was rushed. I feel like each episode, has its, it's at the point in, telling that story in the episode. And it's also, Last of Us is a lot bigger than Twisted Metal, even though Twisted Metal has been around a lot longer. But Twisted Metal also hasn't technically had a game since the PlayStation 3, so there's not a lot of people who are still paying attention to that franchise. So when it comes to these 30-minute episodes, I think they give people more of a, comfort to watch it. And if they're not into it, then it's like, they just watched a 30-minute episode. It wasn't for them, so they're not going to continue. But if it is, then it's like you can, as we talked about, you can binge it within a day. And, every single episode has a reasoning to progress the plot. And I don't think that they wasted, with any filler. I never felt like there was any filler in the show. Every episode told a story, told a
Yeah.
backstory about characters that they're introducing, and I think they did a phenomenal job of that, especially with characters from the video games that we all know, that Twisted Metal fans all know. So it was probably, I'm hoping that season 2 continues that. If we do get another one, I really hope we do. So I'm keeping an eye on to see how the ratings go, because Peacock's apparently not been doing very well.
WWE been carrying the hell out of Peacock.
Yeah,
That is for sure.
They really have, yeah. So I do hope that this is a success for Peacock, like The Last of Us was a success for HBO Max. I'm not
Absolutely.
gonna get Max. Screw that.
Yeah, for real. Fuck that.
And especially, I love seeing PlayStation expanding from just being games to being TV shows and taking a risk on something like Twisted Metal that's just basically car demolition derby, but giving this plot line that can hook you from the first episode even was, exactly what this franchise needs. And I've even heard rumors that apparently there was a new Twisted Metal game in development. So I'm hoping that with the success of the show brings the success to the games, like we saw this revival of The Last of Us with the TV show. Because Twisted Metal is a lot of fun. I played it back with my brother on the original PlayStation and the PlayStation 2, and there is more to it than just car destruction. Like, it's a lot of fun, and I was so happy to see that every episode, like especially the main character has his car. That's very important in this show. That's very important in this franchise, is the car with the mounted weapons, because that's what separates it from so many other franchises.
I've never played any of the games. I own a PS3. Should I cop the PS3 game?
I'd say yes.
If it's Twisted Metal Black, yes.
Yeah, Twisted Metal Black. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was the best one.
I might have to look into that. Because I would like to play it to have a little bit more context. That'd be pretty cool. And I do have a PS3. At least I have a way to play it. Now, the last thing that we're gonna say, because I'm sure there's somebody out there listening that said, "Oh, why haven't they talked about Sweet Tooth yet?" I guess you're going to have to tune into episode 2 to find out, because that's what we're going to call this episode, just like they decided to. So that is going to wrap up this episode of Side Mission. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Side Mission Pod. You can check us out on Facebook as well at Side Mission Podcast. For the boys, for Matt, for Kyle, I'm Rusty. Thanks for listening.